We believe in a physical resurrection, a bodily resurrection. Well, somebody who doesn't believe is, oh, what are you talking about? You're talking about that bodies are going to rise again? If that were so, wouldn't it have to be described in the Bible somewhere, very detailed, how that would happen? I'd like to share with you a special understanding or revelation I've gotten from scriptures, which I call prophesying the resurrection. And it's taken from the end of the book of Ezekiel. The end of the book of Ezekiel, we see a series of prophecies. In chapter 36, we see the physical and spiritual restoration of the nation of Israel. In chapter 37, we see a detailed description of the bodily resurrection, which is what we're going to talk about. In 38 and 39, right after that, we see the great war of Gog and Magog, which I think is the same thing as Armageddon. And then we have 9 chapters from chapter 40 to 48 of this kingdom on earth from Jerusalem, which we believe is the millennial kingdom, Messiah ruling on earth from Jerusalem. Now let's go back to 37. We believe in a physical resurrection, a bodily resurrection. Well, somebody who doesn't believe is, oh, what are you talking about? You're talking about that bodies are going to rise again? If that were so, wouldn't it have to be described in the Bible somewhere, very detailed, how that would happen? And the answer to that is yes, and yes, it does. In Ezekiel 37, God shows Ezekiel a vision of dead bones, a huge valley, and what happens? He begins to prophesy, and the bones come together. First, bone are connected to bone, and then the ligaments, and then the skin is recreated, the muscles, and then the skin, and then breath is blown into them, and then they stand up and begin to move. This is a detailed physical description of a bodily resurrection of a mass of human beings. So we can't say it doesn't happen. But what I want to talk about was not just the proof of the bodily resurrection, but our part in prophesying it. So it's Ezekiel is there, and God is speaking to him. I'll read it to you from the Hebrew. I'm reading in verse 3 from Ezekiel 37. He says, Vayomer Eli, and God said to me, Ben Adam, hatichiena hatzamot eli? Son of man, can these bones live? V'omar Adonai Elohim ata yadata. And I said, oh God, only you know. Well, let's explain that a little bit. God is trying to show Ezekiel something about the resurrection. He says, now tell me, these people are dead, these are dead bones, can they live? And Ezekiel says, look, first of all, I don't know. And if I did know, I couldn't do anything about it. So as I interpret, God says, and look, I have the wisdom, and I do know, and yes, they will live. And I have the power to make them live. So Ezekiel, you don't have the wisdom, and you don't have the power. The power and the wisdom comes from God. But then he says to Ezekiel something amazing, but there is a part that I want you to play in this resurrection. And he says to them, the next verse, he says to him, Vayomer Eli, hinabe ala atzamot eli. And he says to me, you prophesy over these dry bones. And he says, and when I prophesied, there was an earthquake. That's the resurrection, the second coming, the rapture. It all happens, and the bones begin to come together. It's amazing. There's a cooperation between Ezekiel and God. God brings the wisdom, God brings the power, and Ezekiel, what does he have to do? He just has to submit and obey and say what God tells him to do. He just says exactly those words. Now, those words are written in the Bible. Now, let me ask you something. When Ezekiel said them, did it happen? Not yet. Is Ezekiel here? No, he's not here. And that tells me something, that there must be a group of people in the end times who will read the book of Ezekiel and understand that we don't have the wisdom, we don't have the power. All the wisdom and the power, the plan comes from God. But there is a group of people who have to stand on earth, believe it, submit to it, and say something. We, in the position, a people of Ezekiel, an Ezekiel generation, we have to do what Ezekiel did. We have to stand up in our generation and begin to proclaim these verses, begin to read the Bible out loud and proclaim that we believe in the resurrection of the dead, because I believe it will be in our generation that we really will see what Ezekiel saw in a vision. But it's really going to happen in our generation. And we need to take Ezekiel's place, submit to God, believe, and prophesy to these dead bones, prophesy to the resurrection. You and I all the saints of God, like Ezekiel, we have a part to play. Maybe a small part. God brings the wisdom and the power, but we have a part to play in believing and declaring the resurrection of the dead. Is that exciting? Let's do it.